He thinks that's not the way forward for Formula One. What's your opinion on that?
To me, it looks pretty terrible.
The fall of Red Bull. A Formula One dynasty crumbles. Silverstone.
That's the worst, one of the worst tracks, but for me, yeah.
July 2025. A heated argument erupts inside the Red Bull hospitality unit. Christian Horner, Jos Verstappen, Paul Smith. Three men shouting behind closed doors while Max Verstappen sits 69 points behind in the championship.
The race, I'm afraid you'll see the start, your pit stop and the checkered flag is all you feel.
I think most of it was just done in the beginning, right? Just your starting position, and then, quite...
Less than 72 hours later, Horner is gone. But this wasn't just another Formula One power struggle. This was the moment a 20-year empire began to crumble from the inside out. Because when Dietrich Mateschitz died in October 2022, he didn't just leave behind a racing team. He left behind a power vacuum, a web of lies, and two men who would destroy everything to claim his throne. What really happened inside Red Bull Racing? And who is to blame for Max Verstappen losing his fifth world championship by just 2 points? The warning signs appeared long before the championship slipped away. Helmut Marko remembers it clearly. July 2022, the Austrian Grand Prix. Mateschitz was there, frail and struggling. According to Marko's interview with Dutch Paper Telegraph, Christian Horner approached him that weekend with a chilling prediction. He won't make it to the end of the year. From that moment on, Horner began positioning himself for power, cozying up to Helmut Marko, Red Bull's Thai co-owner. When Mateschitz passed away that October, the battle lines were drawn. Horner made his move. With Marko's support, he attempted to consolidate control over the team. Marko, representing the Austrian side of the operation, fought back. As Marko stated, "On behalf of Austria, I did everything to prevent that." But that was just the start. After a dominant 2023 season where Red Bull won 21 of 22 races, the powder keg exploded. Early 2024 brought allegations of inappropriate behavior against Horner toward a female employee. Although he kept his position, the investigation engulfed the team in chaos. At the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the situation escalated. Marko himself faced suspension threats for alleged media leaks about the investigation and supposedly spreading rumors that Red Bull's Ford engine development was behind schedule. Then Max Verstappen issued his ultimatum. The four-time world champion made it clear that Marko's presence at Red Bull was important to him, a thinly veiled threat that he would leave if the Austrian was pushed out. Verstappen remained. Marko kept his job, but the relationship between Horner and Marko was finished. And this is where the story gets dark. By 2025, the cracks became fractures. Adrian Newey, the legendary designer who built Red Bull's championship-winning cars, was gone. The RB21 was a disaster, difficult to set up and worse to drive. McLaren dominated while Red Bull scrambled for answers. The second seat became a revolving door. Liam Lawson lasted just 2 races before being swapped for Yuki Tsunoda, who provided no improvement. Lawson later claimed Red Bull deliberately sabotaged his setup at the Chinese Grand Prix, making his car undrivable and leading to his demotion to Racing Bulls. Meanwhile, Horner tried everything to force Marko out. In his final interview, Marko revealed the extent of Horner's campaign against him. "Do you remember when during Sergio Perez's time it was claimed that I had said Mexicans were less focused than the Dutch or Germans? That was fabricated, perhaps by them." The accusations kept coming. The rumor about the Ford engine delays that nearly got Marko suspended? According to Marko, "I never said that. Horner wanted to use that to suspend me." But McLaren swore both drivers had equal treatment. Red Bull maintained everything was under control. The telemetry and the results told a different story. By mid-2025, Verstappen had fallen to a 69-point deficit behind Oscar Piastri. The British Grand Prix became the breaking point. After the explosive confrontation at Silverstone, Red Bull's Thai ownership finally acted. They removed Horner and promoted Laurent Mekies from Racing Bulls to team principal. The change was immediate. Mekies convinced Verstappen to stay, with the Dutchman confirming his commitment at the Belgian Grand Prix. 3 races later at the Dutch Grand Prix, Verstappen began an incredible run of 10 consecutive podium finishes, clawing back the deficit to finish just 2 points behind Lando Norris. But it was too late, and Marko knows exactly why. In his Bombshell interview following his retirement announcement, the 82-year-old Austrian dropped the truth bomb that Red Bull didn't want anyone to hear. More and more often we were able to prove that Horner was lying about all sorts of things. Once Calum realized that too, he came to his senses. We had to do something because performance on track was lagging. If we'd done it earlier, we would have turned things around sooner this year and Max would have become world champion. I'm absolutely convinced of that. That one statement, backed by months of documented evidence and the dramatic turnaround under Mekies' leadership, told us everything. The results don't lie. Under Mekies, Red Bull's performance transformed. Verstappen's podium streak proved the car had potential. The championship was within reach. The fallout from Marko's revelations is seismic. For Christian Horner, his legacy is now forever tainted. The man who led Red Bull to 6 Constructors' Championships and 8 Drivers' titles will be remembered not for his victories, but for the internal warfare that cost Max Verstappen a record-tying 5th consecutive championship. For Max Verstappen, the bitterness runs deep. Days after losing the title, he doubled down on his claim that he would have easily won the championship in the McLaren. When asked about these comments, Verstappen was defiant. That's just a fact. That's not meant to be irritating, not even consciously or unconsciously. It's just a fact, and no one has to agree with it. These aren't mind games. This is a 4-time world champion telling the world he was betrayed by his own team's dysfunction. For Red Bull Racing, the consequences extend far beyond 2025. They're building their own power unit for 2026, a massive gamble for a team with no engine-building experience. Reports from the paddock suggest they're well behind Mercedes, Ferrari, and Honda in development. The hybrid system is reportedly problematic, and testing has been delayed. And Verstappen's contract runs until 2028, but it's widely believed to contain performance-based exit clauses. Mercedes and Aston Martin are watching closely. Toto Wolff has been pursuing Verstappen for years. If the 2026 Red Bull isn't competitive, the greatest driver of his generation will walk away from the team that made him a champion. This wasn't just a race lost. This was a dynasty destroyed from within. Now, 3 futures emerge from the wreckage. Scenario 1. Red Bull nails the 2026 power unit against all odds. Verstappen stays, Laurent Mekies builds a new dynasty, and they reclaim their throne. The Horner era becomes a cautionary tale, but the team survives. Scenario 2. The engine project fails. Verstappen activates his exit clause and joins Mercedes or Aston Martin. Isaac Hadjar, talented but unproven, becomes Red Bull's new lead DRI. The team that dominated Formula One for years becomes a midfield runner, destroyed by the very ambition that once made them great. Scenario 3. The truth gets worse. More revelations emerge about what really happened during the Horner era. Sponsors flee. Top engineers follow Verstappen out the door. And Red Bull Racing, the team built by Dietrich Mateschitz to conquer Formula One, exits the sport entirely by 2028. One of these futures is already unfolding. We just don't know which one yet. Was Christian Horner's removal too late to save Verstappen's championship? How many other lies did Red Bull's leadership tell while the team crumbled? And when the 2026 cars hit the track in pre-season testing, will we see a Red Bull resurgence or the final confirmation of their collapse? One thing is certain. Helmut Marko got his €10 million golden handshake and his revenge. He exposed the truth on his way out the door. But the empire he helped build? That might be gone forever. Because in Formula One, dynasties don't die on track. They die in boardrooms, behind closed doors, when ambition becomes more important than winning. If you made it this far, you already know this wasn't about one bad season. This was about power, lies, and the price of internal war. So tell me, who really destroyed Red Bull Racing? Was it Horner's hunger for control? Marko's refusal to step aside? Or was it inevitable the moment Dietrich Mateschitz took his final breath? The 2026 season will give us our answer.